Chicky DeMaine, aka Debu, Debu.com, with your Debu.com video surf forecast update. This surf forecast update brought to you by Salt Life Food Shack with 2 locations, Jacksonville Beach and Coral Springs. Coming soon, Stewart and St. Augustine. Get shacked at the Shack, Salt Life Food Shack. Start you off with a look at some satellite imagery, and this is what we posted on our Facebook page yesterday as Tropical Storm Barbara, or Tropical Depression Barbara, was crossing over Mexico towards the Bay of Campeche, and we posted that once she emerged in the Bay of Campeche, that she would basically take a west-northwest track. National Hurricane Center actually had this at one time moving off directly to the west, and we just did not feel that was going to take place. And when we look over here at this morning's infrared satellite imagery, what was left of the main area of circulation was basically right over in here in the southwest Gulf of Mexico. As you can see, this morning convection is still fired up in here, and there was another area of circulation that was still over land, but this is now dissipating and has elongated through here. So there really is no circulation center left. What is left is going to develop into a trough of low pressure and start to drift over towards the east-northeast, towards the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula over the next couple of days. The next thing that we would like to show you this morning is an area of low pressure that is now moving off the West African coast. This is going to track towards the west over the next several days, and we may see this come up into the southern Bahamas. When we look at the latest infrared satellite imagery, you can see that convection is fired up this morning, and as this moves away from the coast, it's going to diminish some, but it looks like a vigorous tropical wave is going to be crossing the Atlantic over the next several days, and we may be looking at this in the southern Bahamas towards the end of next week, around the same time that we may see Tropical Storm Barbara or Andrea in the Gulf of Mexico. Switching you over to last night's run of the forecast models, and we'll start you off with the GFS. The GFS is the primary model that we follow. We do, for comparison reasons, look at a couple other different models. And here's Friday here. You can see some remnants of Barbara over here in the Bay of Campeche. We've got a surface trough in here in the northern Bahamas in between the southeast Florida coast. And as we progress through the model, going into Saturday, really nothing happening over there in the Bay of Campeche. This surface trough in the Bahamas that's helping to enhance the southeast wind flow in here for the east coast of Florida is still hanging in here. Wants to start to elongate and possibly move back towards the island of Hispaniola. Get into Sunday, and again, we get us a little bit of deepening pressures in here in the Bay of Campeche, and we get this surface trough in here elongating, moving back towards Hispaniola. And going into Monday, we now see some deepening of lower pressures in the Bay of Campeche. This possibly could become a tropical depression in here on Monday, so we'll be watching for that. We've got some deepening of low pressure in here in the east central Bahamas, but look back out here towards Africa now. Here's that area of low pressure that's currently moving off the West African coast, and it's going to continue to move off towards the west. We get into Tuesday, and Tuesday, the GFS now starts to deepen this area of low pressure in here in the Bay of Campeche. Still some lower pressures hanging in here in the east central Bahamas. We'll continue to monitor that. And then again, this area of low pressure continues to move off towards the west, towards the islands in here. Get into Wednesday. Wednesday is where things start to get a little exciting. We see a little bit of movement after being nearly stationary in here towards the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. We've got some lower pressures in here towards Hispaniola, and again, this area of low pressure in here continue to move off towards the west. On Thursday, look what happens. The GFS now takes that area of low pressure and moves it towards the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. This area of low pressure in here, possibly tropical depression starting to form in here. We'll have to keep an eye on that. And then look what happens in here on Friday, Panhandle folks. GFS now deepens this area of low pressure, and we possibly could see Tropical Storm Andrea in here north of the tip of the Yucatan Peninsula. Again, this area of low pressure in here moving off towards the islands, and you're going to see in the next image how this now wants to ride the high pressure ridge and will start to move towards the west-northwest now. Here's that image for Friday afternoon, and Friday afternoon it looks like Tropical Storm Andrea approaching the Big Bend area close to the west coast of Florida. And then here is this movement in here where this now wants to clear the northern islands in here. So it could be by Sunday we could be looking at something in here towards the southern Bahamas, and at the same time having Andrea in here in the northern Gulf of Mexico. Giving you a little bit different look and switching you over to the Canadian model. This is the CMC, and on Thursday, the CMC, again, basically showing the same thing as the GFS. Now, one of the characteristics about the Canadian model is the Canadian model wants to overblow an area of low pressure and kind of develops it to the extreme. It's not the reason why we look at the CMC. We look at the CMC for location, and as you can see, the CMC is suggesting the same basic thing as the GFS model. Going into Friday for the CMC, and as you can see, this kind of overblows it. It's one of the characteristics of that, but again, this showing an area of low pressure approaching the Big Bend area or the Panhandle. So definitely consensus within the models. Going over to the run of the ECMWF. Now, this is for Saturday, so it's a little bit further behind than the GFS and the CMC. But again, it's showing us the same thing, an area of low pressure approaching the Big Bend area or the Panhandle in here. But also look to see what it's showing us out here in the Atlantic over here, southwest of Bermuda. Here's Bermuda right here. It wants to develop another area of low pressure in here. So again, very active phase that we're approaching for the first 10 days to start the 2013 tropical Atlantic cyclone season. We still are holding on to the idea that we could see two systems in the first 10 days of the 2013 season. So be sure to stay tuned for the next update. Stay tuned to the forecast. Thanks.